Shauna Hanna in the New Proclamation Commentary says about today's lesson from Matthew. There we go. Listen carefully. When preachers highlight the first part, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind, sermons tend to have a cognitive focus. That is, they address our need to understand and to make a decision to love God. This is odd, given that Jesus does not say only, you shall love the Lord your God with all your mind. What about our heart and soul? Indeed, we are to love God with all of who we are. She continues, in my experience, preachers tend to highlight the second of the two greatest commandments. That is, love the neighbor. Such sermons come across as yet one more motivational pep talk. As if this time such a pep talk will take. I tell student preachers that chances are good we already know we're supposed to love our neighbors. The struggle is how to do it. Is being reminded all we need? I'm doubly frustrated when the preacher says, it's simple, love the neighbor. Because this means, one, not only have I failed, but two, I have failed at something simple. So maybe I'll just sit down and not preach today. No, I'm just kidding. But I want to look at this text today from a different point of view. And that is how hard it is to love God, to love our neighbor, and to love ourselves when all around us there are disordered or unbalanced views of all three. For example, I found this comment from someone I don't know on Twitter yesterday. The meal isn't over when I'm full. The meal is over when I hate myself. Now that's a disordered view of self. And how can I love my neighbor as myself when deep down I regularly feel a sense of hatred for myself and my behavior? I would recommend that anyone who truly feels like that find an Overeaters Anonymous group for help. And here's another, sort of in the same vein, and Esther gave me permission to share this. She shared it on Facebook yesterday. This is from Bill W., the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's at least 50 years old and it's very dense, so listen carefully. Well remembered is the comfort I used to take from an exaggerated belief in my own honesty. I was so absurdly proud of my business standards that I never failed to whip up a fine contempt for those of my fellow Wall Streeters who were prone to shortchange their customers. This was arrogant enough, but the ensuing self-deception proved even worse. My prized business honesty was presently converted into a comfortable cloak under which I could hide the many serious flaws that beset other departments of my life. Being certain of this one virtue, it was easy to conclude that I had them all. For years on end, this prevented me from taking a good look at myself. If the person with the eating disorder is currently suffering, this man was looking back from a condition of recovery at a period in his life when it was crystal clear that he was deceiving himself in many ways. This also is a disordered view of self, especially in relationship to God, and as those in recovery say, it's a spiritual disease. How about a disordered view of God? This one really struck me. And I'm not prone to violent language, so please forgive the words, but the concept is one we often hear. This is supposedly God saying this, and again, I found it on Twitter. The tweet of God is what it's called. People who try to kill for my sake, God's, need to be killed for yours. And that's a heavy one in light of current world conditions. Whether idea of entering into the so-called holy war, we all know that over the centuries, many people have killed in the name of God, however they understand God, and that they will continue until they're stopped in one way or another. So what about a disordered view of our neighbor? This is someone responding to the idea that it's not Christian to work for justice in the world. His name is Daniel Jose Camacho, and his tweet was shared by the Episcopal Cafe. Saying activism isn't Christian is a nice way of dismissing Ferguson protesters without publicly doing so. He means that the person who said activism isn't Christian is thinking that's a way to put people in their place without disagreeing with them directly. And this person obviously never heard Jesus call to work for justice, whatever we determine justice to be in a given situation. And I'll share one more from the Lutheran tradition. These are Martin Luther's own words from a humorous website called The Lutheran Insulter. You are, in all you do, the very opposite of Christ, as befits a true Antichrist. Those demonizing words would be hard to hear, right? On the website, after receiving an insult, you have the option to choose insult me again. But imagine hearing something similar and meant seriously. Jesus knew that these two commandments from the Jewish tradition were at the same time the simplest, the most basic, and the most complex commandments we could try to keep. So what causes us to think in these disordered ways about self, about neighbor, and about God? Most likely insecurity and the need to compare ourselves with others. As David Lose says about Jesus' interaction with the Pharisees in our Matthew text, there's this peculiar attempt at self-justification going on that stems, I'd argue, from insecurity. The Pharisees, perhaps made insecure by the failure of the Sadducees, again want to put Jesus to the test, justifying themselves and their position and authority by bringing him down a peg or two. But what they find is that once again Jesus stumps them, and they don't realize that he's spoken of himself. He's talking about his own idea, his own identity as the Son of David. The beginning of the Gospel of Matthew is careful to trace Jesus' lineage through David to Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who was called the Messiah. If Joseph is not named as Jesus' father, but as Mary's husband, he must have a different father, right? Here is the first time that Matthew implies that Jesus is the Son of God. We tend towards self-justification because of insecurity. We all attempt to find and retain a place of security and control in the scheme of things. And we often do that by making God into our own image and putting others down. And our own security is enhanced when we compare ourselves with others. So where does freedom from insecurity lie? Someone on the internet said something this way. I want someone who loves me as I am, but somehow still inspires me to be a better person. The best relationships are like that. I know that I am bound to fail those who believe in me. It's just the way it is. My husband, my children, friends and family, all of you. And it's only through forgiveness and grace that we begin to know the ability to move from a place of inadequacy and insecurity to a place of growth and capacity. But how do we find the ability to love each other as we are? There's a wonderful short hymn that originates with the Iona community in Scotland. and written by John Bell that I think describes it very well. The words say, "Take, oh take me as I am. Summon out what I shall be. Set your seal upon my heart and live in me." Our Lord meets and takes us as we are, flawed human beings, but loved, always deeply loved. And that's good news. Then, we ask that our potential, our unknown future, to love our neighbor as ourselves, might be summoned out of us. And we ask that the seal of our baptism, which orients and guides us, might live within us, enabling us to love God with our whole being, heart, soul, and mind. And may it be so.